Hello, hello. Devotional for today is going to come from the Gospel according to John, the 21st chapter, verses 2 through 4. Let's hear what the Spirit is saying to us today. Simon Peter, Thomas, Nathanael from Cana in Galilee, Zebedee's sons, and two other disciples were together. Simon Peter told them, "I'm going fishing." They said, "We'll go with you." They set out in a boat, but throughout the night they caught nothing. Early in the morning, Jesus stood on the shore, but the disciples didn't recognize it was Jesus. Word of the Lord, thanks be to God. This is one of my favorite resurrection stories. I love it. It's fascinating. There's this wonderful scene where here's Peter gathered with the disciples, a bunch of them friends, and he just kind of blurts out, "I'm going fishing." And they say, yeah, we'll join you. They go out, they catch nothing. Jesus shows up. This is that scene where he says, "You're not catching anything, have you?" And they look at each other and they say, "No, we haven't." And he says, "Well, cast your net on the other side," something they've never done before. They do. They can't. They can barely bring in all the fish with the nets. Peter realizes it's Jesus. He swims to shore. They bring the boat in after Peter. Of course, they have this beautiful kind of breakfast cookout situation there with Jesus, with their friend who they thought they'd lost forever. It's a gorgeous story. And I think it rings true for us these days, not just because it's a resurrection story in this season of Easter, but the disciples experience pain and loss. They experience trauma. What do? They go back to what they know. And Jesus has to tell them it's time for something different. These conversations as they're having breakfast and the way he interacts with them really let them know this is something new. I am resurrected, and you need to continue to grow in the way I'd asked you to grow. And this time, not just as disciples, but as apostles, people who are sent out. He illustrates that with telling them to fish on the other side of the boat. Kind of this comical way to get them to catch something when they were coming up pretty short. But that's what we do as human beings. We experience trauma, we experience pain, we revert back to what we know. And that's probably happening with a lot of us. There's pain, there's trauma, there's people wondering what's going on with the economy. There's people who are losing people they love. We went from praying for these people we wouldn't even know who are experiencing this pandemic to now we can name those people. People are dying. People can't be together for the funerals. People don't know if they're going to get back to work anytime soon. Churches, nonprofits are thinking, how can we keep people employed? How can we keep doing the good work we're supposed to be doing? We can't figure out how to really stay in touch and how to really be family sometimes. And the question is, on the other end of this, are we going to revert back? Or are we going to recognize that God in the midst of this has been with us and has been calling us to something new? It's important to think about that. The risen Christ is always calling us forward, always calling us to look with new eyes at what could be ahead for us. So I ask you to think on that, pray on that. As many people have pointed out, maybe going back to normal isn't what we need. Maybe it's a new normal. Maybe it's a calling to something that looks a little different. I invite you to pray with me. Gracious God, thank you for being with us during this season where so much has been turned upside down, when hopes are dashed upon a stone and our expectations have been shifted. Continue to call us and challenge us. Continue to meet us there on that beach. Continue to show up in the breaking of bread and in our meals, to show us your ways and these new callings. Don't let us revert back to what we know. Keep us moving forward, seeking to follow you every step of the way. Amen. Take care of yourselves.